Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mark Allen from Gaper.io, and I'm here today with Youssef El Kaddioui. I think I got it right, didn't I? It was in the other chat. The CEO and founder of Scalelist. How you doing this morning for you? It's actually Thursday morning for you, right, Youssef?
Exactly, yes, 8:39 precisely. So not doing very well. I'm an early riser. I was up at 6:30, so feeling very good for this podcast.
And for the people out there, Youssef is coming live from Hong Kong. So
Correct.
the title of our podcast today is Scaling Beyond Borders, Mastering B2B Lead Generation in a Global Market. So why don't we start with first, just tell people what Scalelist is, so there's a base understanding.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Happy to give an introduction. So, Scalelist is a SaaS that we started about a year and a half ago. It's essentially an AI-powered sales database that allows salespeople to create and monitor what we call the perfect prospect list. So, essentially, users can select contacts or prospects from LinkedIn, for instance. They can enrich those contacts with emails, phone numbers, and other data pieces that are relevant to them. But also, Scalelist allows them to track those leads to know whenever there's somebody new who fits their search criteria that appears on their database. And essentially, the goal of Scalelist is helping salespeople to create their prospect lists very fast, get the right details, but also monitor those contacts so that whenever there's any movement in that list, they're aware of those changes and they can engage with them. So it cuts a lot of the manual work, essentially.
I see. So we'll probably say, in a nutshell, it really saves salespeople a lot of time that they do going between different sites to do things. And I think one of the major changes is when they change jobs or they change positions in a company, correct?
Correct. Yeah, hugely.
Yeah. So you've actually built Scalelist from scratch, right? And almost half your revenue comes from the USA. So even though have you been here? I don't think you have you?
I've actually not made it to the States, but definitely planning on it for several reasons. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, how do you get Scalelist started, and what helped you grow it so quickly around the world?
So, I mean, we started Scalelist out of a specific idea. I mean, I own also a lead generation agency called the Scale Lab. So it's scalelab.com. What we do is cold emailing, LinkedIn outreach, as well as cold calling. And a lot of the time we were wasting was on creating prospect lists. So who we should be contacting. Like a lot of sales, we use LinkedIn. We also use several other databases, but I'd say LinkedIn Sales Navigator in particular is the primary tool that we use to find leads. The issue is that whenever you find, let's say, thousands of leads, it takes you a lot of time, to, like most people, you copy paste information manually on a spreadsheet, the first name, last name, company name, so on, which kind of works, let's say, if you have a small list of 10, 50 people, maybe. But when you have to probably address over thousands a day, that becomes a bit tedious. So we created Scalelist as a means to enable us to create very quickly contact lists that we need, and especially find the contact details. So these are not personal emails. We found only professional emails to engage with them. When we ran, so 5 years ago when I started the Scale Lab as an agency, we didn't have access to these tools. This is something that didn't exist. So we had to do it manually. Progressively, some scraping or exporting tools appeared so we could make use of it. And that was pretty helpful. But then came the problem of how do we find their contact details? So phone numbers, email addresses, and other parts, which is now what Scalelist does. So literally within one click, you can export your search, get your emails and phones. So this helped us for the agency cut down on cost, but also be a lot more efficient. And as Scalelist grew, the idea was to help also others to achieve exactly the same thing. We realized that if we had this problem at scale with the agency, that was also a problem that was very common for lots of salespeople. So when we launched Scalelist a year and a half ago, it was partly clear that this was a very, let's say, generally commonly shared need among salespeople. And as it operates as a Chrome extension, people can find us through the Chrome store. So we got actually quite a good traction from that. We also have a good amount of rating, and I guess like Google also pushes you as soon as you have better ratings, more people using your SaaS as well. And this is how it really started.
Very cool. And you've actually already created a pretty strong presence in the US market, and you've done it remotely. So how did you build trust with your clients in a country that you've yet to visit?
This is a good question. I think we live in a world where anybody can create a business online, and what matters truly is not necessarily where your customers come from or where does the product come from. It's whether the product that you're offering delivers to its promise. I would say that's really the number one level of trust that you can, the main level of trust that you can establish with any users. As long as you deliver to your promise or even overachieve this, I think you can establish trust with anyone in the world. And secondly, I mean, yes, I have personally not been to the States yet, but I have close ties with US for several personal reasons. I mean, also I started my career at Amazon Web Services, also worked at Google, so American companies. I mean, and I think the US is also this kind of country where wherever you are in the world, you know about it. You know the capitals, you know the different states. People know about the elections. Whereas I grew up in Morocco. I can't say that most people I meet outside of Morocco know much about it. Whereas the States is quite obvious. And another personal part, I mean, my brother's wife is American, my girlfriend is American as well. So while I haven't physically been, it kind of feels like I have been there several times. So, and yeah, as I said, I really think it's about delivering to the promise that you offer.
So where's your girlfriend from? What city?
Yeah, she's from Ohio actually. So yeah.
A very key state in our next election.
I know, yeah.
So interesting. And I'm curious, do you actually have salespeople in the US, or how do you do your sales?
We do not have salespeople in the US. So for Scalelist in particular, as a SaaS, right now most of our acquisition comes from say inbound or organic inbound leads, whether that's from our Chrome extension, from SEO, but also from our YouTube channel. So we have a YouTube channel that's called Scalelist. You can look it up, in which we provide. It's not necessarily demos of our product. We actually provide a lot of content on how to use Sales Navigator for lead generation. So we understood that since we are a plugin of Sales Navigator, we're an officially approved app of the LinkedIn developer platform. So we integrate natively with Sales Nav. We understood that people who would use Scalelist are only at the stage where we're right now, only users of Sales Navigator. So if we can tell people how to use Sales Navigator better, whether that's tips and tricks or little hacks that they can use for finding better leads, how they can perform better searches, how LinkedIn compares to LinkedIn Sales Navigator. So just as a side step, Sales Navigator is the paid version of LinkedIn that offers also a lot more advanced filtering options that you actually don't even have and can't even think about when you use only LinkedIn for free. So we're showing all of this on our channel. We have free masterclasses, and I mean, anybody can access this. And this has given us really good traction because, again, it's about establishing trust. Whether I record my video in Hong Kong or record it in the US, what matters is, am I delivering value to people who are watching it? So we don't have a sales team per se that makes calls for the SaaS, but we have traffic incoming from the content and the work we do in general.
Interesting. And it brings up an interesting question. It's kind of the chicken before the egg question. Did you build the product first to then sell it to the masses, or did you kind of do it organically, build it as you were going?
It's a good question. I mean, I think we got lucky that we started it from a need that we had at the agency, and it was the number one need we had because we were just wasting so much time. You can imagine we were even hiring people individually to copy paste or like find emails manually, guess them and test them and so on, which was taking an enormous amount of time. Say a list of say 10,000 people would take maybe 7 days to make with email addresses and so on. Whereas with Scalelist, you can do it within a few minutes. So that was a huge saver for us, but also the quality of the delivery was a lot higher than if it was humans doing it. So to your question, whether like we grew the product with the audience, like chicken and egg problem, well, I'd say we got the chicken from Scalelab that laid the egg, which was Scalelist then, because we knew what the problem was. And it was just clear that others had the same problem because we were often asked, how do you do this fast? How do you manage to do that? And the tool was used internally, but it didn't have any front end for that. So this is how Scalelist came about.
So you built it, and then you built a nice UI for
correct.
Yeah. So and
correct,
that's actually that does make sense. So
yeah.
So now we have automation, right? Changing the role of salespeople, and it's going to be really much more so in the next few years. Do you plan to integrate AI into Scalelist to help salespeople?
That's also a very good question. Yes, I mean I can clearly say it's already the case. In fact, for other simple level before, say, ChatGPT was even a thing. Something very simple. I can give you a anecdotal example, but I'll tell you also where we see things evolving. As an anecdotal example, when you are on LinkedIn, you can see people who have on their first name or last name written all in capital letters. Some have emojis as well. And if you have this on your spreadsheet and you send an email to people, like imagine Mark has sent you an email and your full name is written in all caps, you can already tell when you receive the email that the person hasn't done their homework and that it's probably part of an outreach. So our AI cleans up these things, whether that's on the first name, on the title, on the location, on the company name as well. So we remove everything that's LTD, LLC. If I received an email saying, hey, Youssef, I see that you work at Scalelist Limited, I already know that this is a cold outreach and person hasn't done their homework. So our AI does this and cleans it up, but this is just a very, say, a small level of AI. How we see things change and how we see AI coming into the play for Scalelist is, I would say, a lot more advanced than this. Obviously, at this stage, we use a lot of different AIs, and whether that's OpenAI and ChatGPT in particular, or Gemini, or other ones as well. We use it primarily to accelerate the work that we need to do. Whether that's in writing copy, whether that's in finding, like getting ideas, research, and so on. And I think this is also primarily where sales will be replaced first, possibly, is in the research aspect of things. Today, to give you an example, because I still run the cold emailing agency, this year in particular, we can see that anybody can create an outreach of 10,000 people with a specific email that they've generated on any generative AI. Does it mean that it's easy to send an email? Does it then mean that it's easy to get a reply? That, I think, is not the case in the country. I think it's even more so complicated now to get a reply than it was maybe last year or the year before, just because the receiver receives now way too many emails. So the research work is a lot easier to do, the preparation work, but the getting the results is a lot more complicated. And at this stage, I don't feel right now, I don't mean that it's not going to change, and it is going to change. This is where I think the highest value is. Using AI doesn't help you to get replies. It helps you get work done faster right now. And you still need human effort, manual effort to make things personable, relevant as well, to get a response, whether that's on email or on the phone, but also on meetings. Right now, you and I are recording the podcast together as humans, but we can imagine, Mark, you have your future AI that asks your set questions, is able to respond, records while you're doing something else as well. And my AI also knows exactly my knowledge, can answer your questions, and we have that in our own tone of voice. So that's where I see things evolve in ways, in more the qualitative aspect of things. And for Scalelist, we're integrating it in a way because we're doing it at this stage right now, actually, as we speak. What we see is lacking is people work a lot with static lists. So there was a research from Gartner, and Mark, you tell me if I'm telling you too much. This is just a topic that I find like I'm involved in it. I think it's very interesting. There was a very interesting
salespeople have this issue.
Yes, absolutely. I can see that. I mean, every day we get emails of people asking us questions, or on LinkedIn as well. There's one key part that I think is a major problem for sales and any sales database. Gartner released the research this year saying that data decays at the rate of 70% per year. That means that, for example, as a salesperson, if you have a list of 1,000 people within a year, you only have 300 of those people in the list that are still up to date. 700 are outdated because they moved companies, they've changed jobs, they have moved within the company, maybe they changed location. There's a lot that happens within a year, and you know that as well. So right now, there's not a lot of databases that actually solve this problem. A lot still work in a static fashion, which was the case for Scalelist, I would say, a year ago. We provide the list that you're exporting from LinkedIn, but once it's exported, it's done. If you come back to it three months later, or a year later, it's very likely that the people that you had exported a year before are probably not a fit in your list anymore. So right now we're integrating AI, and we're currently beta testing it right now. And actually, just before we recorded the podcast today, I was looking into some of our findings right now. We are updating this. So telling you, okay, hey, Mark, this person that you selected as part of your target market has now moved to another company, still doing the same job, but they moved to another company.
Mm.
Maybe you want to reach out to them, and we can notify you about these changes live. And that's where I think
Wow.
having accuracy of data
Mhm.
and live is something where AI is really going to help, because otherwise you have to redo work to update what you have, and you have to do that manually as well.
Very cool. That is a very interesting feature that I don't know of anybody else that's doing that, what you just said, the proactive notification of changes. So, and
Correct.
and the other thing, you said something interesting. If someone puts their name in all caps, do they do that on purpose so that they know that it's that, a cold lead?
I think some do, and some add emojis as well to their LinkedIn profiles. I mean, you can see that in whether that's on the name or last name. My business partner, for example, has that on his first name, so he knows whenever somebody reaches out with the emoji. And sometimes the emoji doesn't come out nice; it comes just as a square, and
Yeah.
that obviously says, okay, the person hasn't done their homework. But yeah,
Interesting.
it's partly that. And in other countries, some people write names like probably like last names. For example, in France, people typically write last names in all caps.
Yeah. Okay. So, and it's funny, you were talking about cold emailing, and that's a huge part of lead generation. I think it will be for the foreseeable future. Well, I mean, what's your advice for making cold emails stand out in 2024?
Yeah, that's the billion-dollar question.
It is.
It's we talk about this every day for the agency, because it's the core of our business, and it's also partly how we generate leads for Scalelist. So we have to always be on top of what's going on. There's several factors, and I can tell you, let's say, if I trim down to what's the most important, there are two key factors of success. Number one is the data that you work with, and the second is the copywriting. So how you engage. Basically, one is like the ingredient, like for a chef. It matters a lot that you use the best ingredients, because if you don't have good ingredients, you can be the best chef in the world. It's going to be really difficult to produce something that's nice. And the
Mhm.
other way around, if you have good ingredients, but you're a bad chef, you also cannot
Right.
get something out of it. So data and copy are the two key factors of success. One, if you can do your homework really well on segmenting who you're targeting, and like not fall into the trap of shortcuts and wanting to do things too quickly, because if you do that, everybody else does it already, and it's already too easy to create a list and find contacts. I mean, Scalelist does help with that as well, to make your work fast, but it doesn't mean that the homework that you've done before, as in like searching the right leads, has been done properly. I always recommend segmenting as much as possible, having several different lists, so that you can address all of these different lists with a very specific messaging. And then the messaging is the second part. You can use your ChatGPT to say, write a cold email for CEOs to join my podcast. Yes, okay, that can work. I mean, you can get there, but since everybody can do that as well, you're not standing out. And if you want to stand out, you have to use, I would say, AI to deliver your research or work faster, but you still have to have your editing rights in a way. So add up that extra personalization, cut short, make it personable, use something that others are not using. And I think the last part, and this is maybe the bonus for anybody who's currently doing cold email, and it's been a big change for us at the agency. We send about between 100,000 and 200,000 emails per month, and these are targeted. These are not like mass emails. It's just because we have a lot of clients and we run different campaigns for them. What we found works best is, since everybody who's reaching out is usually asking for things, and this is something we took also from Josh Brown, who has like very good ideas on value deposit. You can look him up on LinkedIn. Great sales influencer. Everybody is asking for their prospects time. Like an individual like you, Mark, for instance, you did receive hundreds of emails for everybody asking, hey, can we have a call? Can we have a call? Could you test my product? And so on. Everybody's asking, but nobody is giving. If you can come up with an approach that is giving, you have something that you know is useful for your target audience. Instead of asking, can I have something from you? Say like, I could do this for you. As in like, I have this that you could use a give. So you deposit value onto your prospects accounts. It doesn't mean that you will have 100% of replies, but you come across a lot nicer. You build trust also with somebody, because they don't need to commit to any kind of time. You can do things for them that are helpful. We've seen that really change a lot. Also for the outreach that we're doing with Scalelist, for instance.
And I mean, I think the open rate on emails is pretty low. And I think like if you do a campaign, I think 3% is a good Right. Like if you get 3% of the people respond, I think that's pretty good. So it sounds like if you do these small things, you might get between 5 and 10, right?
Yeah, I mean, in fact, you should target above 10% reply rate.
Well, that
So our KPIs, if you want, that we always had with the agency, which is what exactly we apply for Scalelist growth, is you should have in terms of open rate 50% at least. Otherwise, you'll know that there's an issue that's open, just the open rate. You probably have an issue. If it's below, you probably have an issue with being blacklisted, your deliverability score, your SPF, DKIM, some technical aspects of your outreach are not set up properly yet. Also, maybe your subject line is not the right fit for the audience that you're targeting. And then the 10% reply rate is a minimum, I would say, because you're also aiming to, and I'm not talking about replies that are unsubscribe, leave me alone, stop
right.
emailing me, and
It's
so
not
on.
really
Some of them, yeah, exactly. Some of them will be that, but it should not be a majority. The 10% should come rather from things that are nice, as in like, thanks for this. Yes, I'm interested. No, I'm not interested, but I appreciate it. I'll contact you later. Reach out with me, reach out to me later, and so on. And then what's the bottom line is the most important part. You should have an interest rate that is at least between 1% and 5%. Interest meaning people responding positively to your emails, of course.
Okay. And that makes sense. I mean, that's actually better than the general industry average for these types of products, correct? Definitely.
Correct. Yeah,
I remember I used to
absolutely.
do it and we would be ecstatic to get 3%, right? So,
Yeah.
so, so I have one final question for you. I mean, you started this about a year and a half ago, as you said, Scalelist. So what's the most unexpected lesson you've learned from growing basically an international company from Hong Kong?
Yeah, I like this question a lot actually, and I think whether that was part of the agency before and now changing with Scalelist. So Scalelist being a SaaS, and this is where I spend, let's say, 90% of my time today. I think that the most valuable lesson, the most valuable lesson that I learned through Scalelist is to act from a place of empathy.
Mm-hmm.
And by empathy, I mean it literally, as in the ability to put yourself in other's shoes or like feel their emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you do that, you're able to understand exactly, from a product standpoint, you're able to understand exactly what users really need, and not necessarily how I, as a business, can generate revenue. This should be, of course, like you should still have in mind your business model and generating revenue, but that should not be the sole objective. If you can serve and add value, this comes through empathy. Then you have something that's needed and valuable for which you can charge as well, and people are happy to pay for something that they get value of. But if you don't act out of empathy, and this is something I really learned with Scalelist. And I mentioned earlier in the podcast that we have a YouTube channel in which we provide a lot of content for how to generate leads with Sales Navigator. This came exactly from this. Our users, we know, struggle with Sales Navigator, and sometimes it's really frustrating for a salesperson to spend hours and not actually knowing how to use the tool. If you can, just train yourself and have an increment and be better than you were yesterday, that's perfect. And you enjoy what you're doing. Better results as well. You connect with whoever has delivered this content, which in this case would be myself or my business partner Arnaud. And then if our tool fits into your realm or like your strategy, then please, yeah, go ahead. You can use it, but you also do not have to use it. What matters is that you become a better sales. And that part of empathy, I think, is a critical part of how I address business and how I would like to address business all the time, in fact.
Well, actually, that's a good advice in general in life, I would say, right?
Yeah, correct.
Not just, but I think people forget that. They think, just because I'm in business, I got to be this way. But no, I think it's in general. People
Yeah,
people can sense sincerity, and when you're really trying to help them. So, well,
I agree.
well, first of all, I want to congratulate you for doing such a great job building an international company. It's been actually great talking to you today. I actually am going to try your product. I looked on your site. You actually have a 14-day free trial, right?
Indeed, yes, you can sign up for that.
So I will probably sign up for that next week and give it a try. It looked really interesting. So thank you for your time today, and best of luck with your product. And hopefully we'll see you in the US soon.
Yeah, I'll let you know about that. Thanks, Mark.
All
Really
right,
pleasure
thanks.
to be on the podcast. For anybody else, I mean, hope you're enjoying your sales as well and happy scaling.
Yes, and we'll see you on the other side. Thanks.